What up, Jippers? LPlay's back once again for another No Man's Sky Next video, and a lot has been going on lately. A lot of information has been revealed, teased, hinted at or talked about, and what I want to do in this video is just pull all of that together for a very clear and simple summary of all known information that we have to date on No Man's Sky Next. So let's do this. So what do we know so far? At the moment, we know that the next update will be called No Man's Sky Next. We know that it's coming on July 24th of 2018, and that it will be the biggest ever update to No Man's Sky. So that's even bigger than the last huge update, which was Atlas Rises 1.3. So that should give you a pretty good idea of the scale and ambition of what they're trying to do with this one. We know that it's had 1 year of development time, so it's been a year since the last update, and they've confirmed that they've been working on it non-stop since then. And we also know that for the first time ever, this will see No Man's Sky coming to the Xbox One and also Tencent's Wii game platform, which for those that don't know is essentially the Chinese equivalent to Steam. So not only is it a massive update for existing players, it will also be the first time that new players on Xbox and Tencent's Wii game platform actually get to see it. So essentially this is on the scale of a relaunch. Now, the first time we saw anything hinting at this next update was through Waking Titan, which is an ARG or an alternate reality game that gives No Man's Sky players clues about upcoming content and updates. And we got that first bit of information via the WakingTitan.com website, and it was simply a status update that said, what is 1.5? And 1.5, of course, is believed to be the version of the game that Next will be. Since then, of course, we've had a whole lot more information, and the first big reveal we got was actually from Sean Murray himself on Twitter when he posted a teaser trailer for No Man's Sky Next and revealed the Xbox launch. And it is worth pointing out that when that teaser trailer was revealed, Sean Murray told us that the only reason it was being announced now was because it was reportedly about to leak anyway, so they felt they had to bring out the news to get ahead of that. We also know that the physical release on Xbox will be published by 505 Games, so they'll be the ones handling the physical Xbox copies of the game and distributing that accordingly. And here is a look at the brand new box art. This will be the new box art for No Man's Sky Next on the Xbox version. We don't know if the PlayStation version will get an updated box art to match this or not, and it may well be that it doesn't because 505s are probably handling all of that purely for the Xbox physical edition of the game. Now, not only have we got this awesome piece of box art, we also know that the actual logo, the official logo that's being used on the nomansky.com website is this red glowing Atlas symbol. Now, all of the other updates previously have also had a logo that was used on the website, and typically they tease one of the key features or content additions that are going to be added to the game. So it's quite a safe assumption to think that this red Atlas symbol is a hint at something that's going to be added with No Man's Sky Next, and my guess would be that that's hinting at some kind of new lore around the Atlas and the story in the game. And the way that it's all red and glowing almost suggests that the Atlas is angry or damaged, or there's going to be some kind of chaotic element to the story coming with No Man's Sky Next, although of course that is just assumption based on that picture that we are seeing. So all of that was revealed pretty early on after we found out about the update and we started to hear things about Next and knowing that the update was going to come. But then we were hit with quite a big surprise and a lot of new information on the Inside Xbox livestream event that took place. And that actually had Sean Murray on set with Inside Xbox carrying out an interview talking specifically about No Man's Sky Next. And that interview gave us a couple of tidbits of new information, mostly centered around the fact that the No Man's Sky Next update would bring for the first time ever the full multiplayer experience to the game. And in addition to that, from looking at the Xbox listing of the game, we can now see that the game will be 2 to 4 player co-op, although we do expect that you're going to also be able to see other players outside of that little co-op squad that you have. But of course, we'll have to wait and see before we can confirm that for sure. Now, the link for the interview will be below, but I do just want to go over some of the key things that were mentioned there because they do give us some useful information about what's going to actually be added with No Man's Sky Next. And I think a lot of this stuff is pretty freaking exciting. So he started off by talking about the multiplayer, saying that this would be the full multiplayer experience and that it really changes the experience and gives a different experience of the game. They also mentioned that they wish they'd been able to do this sooner, which I think was quite a key nod back to the launch situation and basically them saying that there's a lot of ambition that they've always had and it's taken longer than they perhaps expected to really realise that vision. But hopefully this means that No Man's Sky Next really does bring us to that next level and achieve a lot of the stuff that they'd always wanted to do. Now, when Sean talked about multiplayer in that interview, he said a lot of really interesting things, and one of those that we could explore together with small groups of our friends, but we could also encounter random travelers and explore with them as well. Which is another reason why I think the 2 to 4 player co-op thing will be a squad-based multiplayer where you can join up and jump into a game with friends, but you will also be able to see at least some other players, although we don't know how many, because that is what will allow us to encounter them randomly on planets or out in space and then decide to explore with them. But there was a little bit more information that was given there that was also really freaking cool. So he mentioned and he hinted at the fact that we would be able to prey on other players and we could be that guy. And of course, the popular view on what that means is that there will be at least some sort of PvP element to the multiplayer coming in No Man's Sky Next. And of course, Sean did then go on to mention that you could actually have multiplayer epic space battles or big space fights, dogfighting, you could be wingmen or pirates, and of course we could also use the existing features that we've got such as racing and all of that kind of stuff together properly in multiplayer. So that all sounds really freaking cool, and it definitely seems like multiplayer is going to be a huge focus of what this update is. However, with that said, there have also been a couple of press releases and statements since then which hint at there being other surprises beyond this that we don't know about. So it certainly does seem like we're going to get a lot more than just the multiplayer stuff, and typically based on everything we've ever seen with an update, there's never just one thing that comes. So multiplayer may well be a huge part of this update, but we are fully expecting there to be a whole host of other changes and little surprises in this update for us as well. So if you're not into multiplayer, don't be worried, I'm sure there's going to be something really cool for all of us anyway. Now, since the interview, we've also had a whole load of other information and teases through Waking Titan and the ARG, and I want to talk about some of those now because they do of course give us really big clues, hints, and even pictures and images of content that's going to be coming up in the next update. And the first key example of that I want to mention, of course, is this freaking awesome scrambled image of what looks like a brand new ship design that's going to be added to the No Man's Sky Next update. So you can see that on screen there. I'll also show you the picture that's been cleaned up a bit where people have kind of tried to unscramble that and put it together to make it much more clear. But it looks like a giant ship, a big massive ship that's going to be added to the game. It's a new design. It's not one that's currently in the game now, so it does seem like this is something brand new for the No Man's Sky Next update. And the little annotations that are on there, they're too difficult to make out. We can't actually read what they say, but the way that they're scattered around at different points of the ship there almost make it look to me like they're hinting very strongly at the fact that this will be a co-pilotable ship. So my suspicion here is that what we're actually seeing is the first co-pilotable ship that we will be able to squad up and fly and pilot and control together in our little 2 to 4 player co-op teams. So that is really freaking exciting, and I'm sure there will be other variations of this kind of ship as well added with the next update. But that isn't all of the teasers that we've got through Waking Titan at the moment, of course. We have also had a look at a brand new player model. That's right, the No Man's Sky Next multiplayer aspect of the game will also come along with fully fleshed out animated player models. We will have an in-game character. It does have a player model. We will have a body, and that body is going to be animated with actual movement. So that is really freaking cool. And of course, it's something that people have really wanted ever since they first added very basic multiplayer in the form of orbs that were put in with the last update. So it certainly seems like they're really taking that foundation that they put in place there and just ramping that up to the next level to give us a true multiplayer online experience that is going to be a freaking blast. But then, of course, we've had another update since then, another tease through Waking Titan and the ARG, and that is this clip of a ringed planet. So this, of course, was another thing that we saw back on the box art there. There was a picture of the ringed planet. We also saw the player models. We also had an indication of the multiplayer because of the 4-man team stood there on the planet. It looks like they're ticking off all of the features that they included in that box art there and revealing them to us 1 week at a time through the ARG. But so far, we've definitely got the player models coming, and we've definitely got ringed planets coming to the game for the first time. And I suspect that if they're adding ringed planets, we're going to see a whole host of other improvements in space as well. So all of this is sounding really freaking cool, and of course we know we're only just scratching the surface. We haven't seen a trailer yet, we haven't even come close to seeing the full patch notes or a full list of all of the features that are going to be added. This is just a little tiny taste of some of the stuff that we can expect. But there are a couple more things that I want to talk about here, which potentially give us some other really interesting clues. And one of those is what's going on with the Waking Titan ARG right now, because we have been shown 3 more different looking player models via one of the websites that's being used for the ARG, and that's the SATCOM uplink website. The link to that will be in the description for you to take a look yourself. But this basically shows us 3 more slight variations of this, which to me look to have a darker tone and vibe to them. But of course, it's quite hard to tell because they're not in full color at the moment. The way we see them, they are kind of shadowed out, and we don't really know exactly what that means. I have a theory on this. I've put it out there. I'm very clear on what I think we're looking at here. In my opinion, what we're seeing here is going to be an NPC enemy race, very similar to us, very similar to the travelers that are in the game now, but kind of the enemy, the bad version of us, something that's an NPC in-game that the players will be able to fight against as the first true enemy in the game. Because at the moment, we know we have the Sentinels, which are the kind of robots that live on planets and basically act as a peacekeeping police force to stop us getting too carried away on planets with mining or hurting animals or stealing resources. But of course, it is worth pointing out once again that that is just my theory on this. They may not be NPCs. This could just be an ARG thing, or it could be what a lot of other people are suspecting at the moment, which is simply just a clue that we're getting variation and customization in the player models that we will be assigned in the game. Although in my opinion, I think we already knew that from the box art, from the variation on those characters. And then of course, if you add to that the brand new unlock that we just got today, which again teases customization through an unlock on those decrypted files from the website, I just don't think they're going to be teasing that same thing again and again and again. So I do think these are different things. But I guess we'll have to wait and see to find out if I'm right or if it is just a hint that customization is coming. Either way, all of this sounds absolutely fantastic to me, and I cannot wait to jump in and get my hands on with No Man's Sky next. But yeah, that covers most of what I want to talk about. That covers most of the things that we've seen in terms of actual information. But before we end, I do want to talk about one last thing, and that is the new ESRB rating that has been assigned to the game for the Xbox version. Because we know that when the Xbox version launches on July 24th, it will include the next update from day one. Right from the beginning, Xbox players will be playing the complete package with every update that's been added to the game, including the new one that launches on that day, which is the next update. And what's really interesting about this ESRB rating is that it's pretty much word for word the exact same description that was given in the ESRB rating originally when the game launched for PlayStation 4 and PC. However, there are 2 key differences that I do want to call out because they potentially give us 2 very big clues about things that are going to happen with No Man's Sky next. And they're things that we haven't seen anywhere else before. And the first one of those is the third-person perspective. Now, we know currently in the game, the default perspective and the only perspective you can use when you actually explore and walk around and fly between planets is first-person. There is no third-person view except for in one very specific instance, and that is when you're in the exocrafts that were added in the Pathfinder update. When you're in those vehicles on planet surfaces, you do switch to a third-person view, but the rest of the game is entirely first-person. But the wording for this rating here says this: from a first or third person perspective, players travel between systems to explore alien worlds. Now, to me, that is quite clear. It's telling us we are going to get a third person perspective, and we're going to be able to use that when we're exploring and going between systems. Now, of course, there's no exocraft that can go between systems, that can enter space. So I do think it's quite a clear indication that the third-person mode is being added, and I don't think that's a big surprise to most people because we know that we are getting multiplayer and we will have full animated player models, so it makes sense that because those player models are in there, they're having to do the animation for all of those movements. Having a third-person mode that would let you see that shouldn't come as a big surprise to most people, and it is something that a lot of people were expecting. And it's also something that people have wanted for a long time, particularly when you're flying ships in space. So my assumption based on that would very much be that third person is going to come along with the multiplayer and the player models, and we will have the option to switch between first and third person at any point. Although of course, just be wary because that isn't 100% confirmed. This is just an ESRB rating. It's not an official statement from Hello Games. It's not a clear indication that that is a feature that is being added. It could just be very poor wording, and actually they're just talking about the exocrafts, although I don't think that is the case personally. But again, we won't have to wait long to see. So that's the first thing in the ESRB rating, but there is a second one which I find way more interesting to that, and that is the addition of one hyphenated word that was not there in the original rating, and that is in the following sentence. While on the planet's surface, players can use a variety of gun-like weapons and melee attacks to defeat alien creatures, human-like figures, and robots. And of course, that little word that I really want to focus on is the human-like. Now that is something that is not currently in the game. We cannot currently in the game engage or defeat any human-like enemies or figures at all. That feature is just not there. There are human-like figures in the game. There are the Vy'keen, the Korvax, and I guess you could probably at a stretch say the Gek are also kind of human-like figures, but you can't fight them. There's no way to engage them. You can try and shoot them, but it doesn't do anything, and you certainly can't defeat them. So this, to me, hints at a new NPC character that will be combatable on a planet's surface, and again, of course, I think personally that that is those player models that I showed there previously, these dark ones. I think that could be a new enemy race, and that will be what they're talking about here. But I do want to point out, this is quite an unpopular view at the moment, so that's my theory. Most people disagree with me. A lot of people seem to think this is purely talking about the multiplayer, but it's just the wording for me doesn't really fit. It's in a sentence that's talking about creatures that are already in the game and robots, which are the sentinels, which are already in the game. It's slap bang in the middle of that sentence. All of the things that are being spoken about there are NPC characters, and it's also worded quite specifically to say players can use a variety of gun-like weapons and melee attacks to defeat, and then it goes on to list those things. So it's calling out that players can go and do that, which to me suggests that it's saying players can do that to things that aren't players, to things that are NPC characters in the game. Otherwise, I don't really understand why it wouldn't just say players can engage in PvP or multiplayer. It definitely seems like they're talking about something different there. But of course, again, that particular bit is my assumption and my theory. The only confirmed thing here is that the wording has changed since the original ESRB rating, and it has added in that section about human-like figures, and it's also added in the wording around first or third person perspective. So you'll have to make your own mind up about exactly what that means. I certainly have my view on what I think it is. But either way, these are changes and this is new information that we haven't seen previously. Which, of course, for No Man's Sky fans right now is very exciting. And we're going to overanalyze everything because we're so desperate to get our hands on next and see what cool stuff we're going to get on July 24th. The only other thing that I want to touch on very slightly is this other player model here, which of course looks very similar to the three that I'd shown earlier. This is something that's part of the ARG. It is one of these dreamers, as they are known in the ARG at the moment, but this one hasn't actually been officially unlocked yet, and it was found because somebody went into the files of the website that was showing these images, basically hacked into the data files and found this as a hidden asset. And to me, this is the one that really looks the most ominous and evil, and it was what originally made me think straight away that these were going to be a new enemy race that we have to fight against in the game. We've got the image, we know that's a tease, we don't know exactly what that's going to translate to in terms of gameplay, but yeah, that's going to do it for this one, guys. Hopefully you found that useful, hopefully you enjoyed it. If you did enjoy it, please do drop a like and a comment. I do now have a Patreon and a merch store if you want to support me that little bit extra. I really appreciate that. One day, of course, the dream is to be able to do this full time, and hopefully with a bit of support we might get there. But yeah, that's it for this one, guys. Take care of yourselves, and peace. I just want to give a huge thank you and shout out to my current Patreon supporters: Shiraka Majeli, YO, Madeline J, NTB, Ovian S, Tyler D, Todd Cook, Neil B, Anarchy, Vanilla, Rasmus K, Autumn Long, Lukash, Husband Vader, Amras, Dale from the Atlas Hub, Joanne Anderson, Heath, and the Portrait Dude. You guys are the best.